let's dig into this. Football players are known for being macho and having bravado, sorry. How'd you get the strength to be brave, raw, open, and honest in your book?
Yeah, we're going there. I think, I mean, even as you say those words, I mean, that's like kind of like the heart of me and the heart of my book. It's this idea of you don't have to be what everyone expects or thinks you should be. I think for me, I always felt like I had to be this big, bad macho, have it all together. But even as I hear those words, some of these emotions that I've always had in my heart are coming up again. These emotions of whether it's fear or joy or shame, all these things that I used to hide and suppress, um, they started to come out. And they didn't start coming out until uh, my back was against the wall. And here's what I mean by that. I just signed a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract, going on my 8th year in the NFL. Things on the outside looked like they were going amazing, but on the inside, I was crumbling. And I think a lot of people have similar experiences, though it may not be on a signing a deal to play in the NFL, but you just got your dream job, or you just met the spouse that you're hoping, or a girlfriend or boyfriend, and all of a sudden things on the inside aren't feeling like they are on the outside. And that was me. That was me. And so I remember that it was about a week before training camp, right around this exact time, 2 years ago, I was sitting with a friend, and it had just been a rough couple months. Marriage wasn't going well. My relationship with my kids wasn't going well. And I just remember telling my friend, I said, man, I just can't wait for the season to start. Because I feel like once that starts, I'll be able to get rid of all these distractions and stay focused.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, Sam, if that's how you feel right now, I'm actually concerned about what happens when football ends, when this thing that you've put on a pedestal ends. And I mean, that really hit me. I actually started to cry because I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, this is just so heavy. And I'm crying. And as I'm crying, he looks at me and he says, it's nice to see you, Sam. And that was the beginning of this journey of what it means to be seen, to be known, and to be loved. He saw me in my tears, in my shame, in my fear, in my doubts, in my everything, the raw emotion. And he looked at me and he said, it is nice to see you. And that message has been a theme throughout the story of this book and my life.
And that's why I asked. I'm sorry to kick things off on such a heavy note. I probably should have kicked that question for a little bit later. I apologize.
No, I love it. I love it.
Okay. So President Clinton, Larry Fitzgerald, and you are meeting. You have your mission work in Nigeria back home. You're someone who's trying to change the world and the community that you live in. We talked about how you were on Get this morning as an NFL PA. You're working on safety for NFL athletes. I saw some news clippings. I believe it was a liquor store that you've turned into something else that's more productive for the community. What are some ways that you have during this pandemic and during this summer that you are impacting your community and just the world, even America or even Nigeria right now in these tough times for everybody?
Yeah, I think the thing about times like these are that they bring out the best or oftentimes the worst in people. We we have been stripped of our distractions. We've been stripped of sport. We've been stripped, many of us, of our jobs that we escaped to, of travel. We've been stripped of all those things. And now our hearts and our souls are left bare for the world to see. Sometimes people who see it are family members, wives, kids, uh, loved ones. Other times it's the people who you just are in your space. And so for me, this time has been a time where like the good stuff has started to come up to the top. Here's what I mean by that. There's a liquor store on the west side of Chicago in a neighborhood called Austin, and that neighborhood it's called a food desert. So there's in a half-mile radius, there's 2 grocery stores and over 17 liquor stores. And everyone knows about some of the looting and rioting that have been going on. So those 2 grocery stores had both been boarded up. People could not get food. We asked some of the kids in the neighborhood, we said, where do you get your food from? They said, well, we go to the gas station. I said, where else? I said, well, we go to McDonald's. We said, well, what else do you get? Where else do you get food? They said, if we want to get healthy food, we have to drive 45 minutes to the next town. There's no food here. And after listening to them, we said, well, why don't we do something? Let's do something. And so I got some some friends together who were pro athletes on different teams, and we raised money. Raised about $500,000 to go and buy this liquor store and to build in it a food mart. And we worked with the kids. The kids led it, actually. We sat with them. We said, what do you want this to look like? And they described it from the beginning to the end, inside and out, what they would want from it and how they want it to look. And that was what we did a couple of weeks ago. And I invited Roger Goodell, who's the commissioner of the NFL. I invited the mayor, Lori Lightfoot. We invited the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department. And we sat in peace circles, listening circles, healing circles with athletes, these dignitaries, and the police officers. And we just heard, just kind of what we're dealing with our emotions.
This is amazing. One of my favorite parts of the book was the Living Hope Medicals out of Nigeria, and you used your 2 nominations from the Walter Payton Man of the Year. I love this, and the book didn't dig deep enough into this. So can you give us a little more insight into this? Because I love what you did and how you used your community service charity checks to do even more community service.
I love that. Yes. I'm so glad we're doing this call so I can share more, because I know people got a tantalizing taste of it when you read the book. So I was going on my 5th, 6th year in the NFL, and there's this award in the NFL called the Walter Payton Man of the Year. It's the most prestigious award in the NFL. And obviously in college they have the Heisman Trophy and all these things, but in the NFL there's the Walter Payton Award, and that award goes for not only community service but on the field performance. I never won or been nominated for that award during many of my years in the NFL. Well, I finally signed with the Chicago Bears, and my 2nd year there, I get nominated for this award. Mind you, Walter Payton was a Chicago Bears legend, a running back, a humanitarian, amazing player. And so I get nominated for this award, and 2 things happened that year. Number one, years past, throughout the entirety of the award, at least in recent history, nominees would get a $5,000 award to their nonprofit. But the year that I got nominated, that award got shifted to $50,000 for a nominee.
God is good.
God is good, right? And so I get nominated, and I'm thinking, okay, my parents are from Nigeria. We go to Nigeria every summer. We do medical mission work. My parents saw a need there, and they wanted to fill it. And so we were trying to figure out a way to build a medical center in Nigeria. We've been going for 30 years. Go for 2 weeks and come back. Go for 2 weeks and come back. And we do surgeries and give out glasses and all these different kind of things. We said, let's do something long lasting. We had a dream, we had a vision. So we started that dream. We didn't know how we were going to finish it. Well, fast forward, I get nominated for this award, and we needed money to help build a hospital. So I get nominated to get $50,000, and it goes straight to Living Hope Christian Ministries, the ministry my parents started. Well, I do an event that year as well, where we raise money for that same ministry, for the same hospital. Well, fast forward to the next year, we're still trying to finish the building, and I get nominated again. There's another $50,000 to the nonprofit, right? Yep. In addition to that, too, I didn't talk about this too much in the book, but I did a fundraiser that next year. And usually the fundraisers, we might raise $50,000, $70,000, $80,000. Well, that year we raised $200,000. Wow. To go towards the work we were doing in Nigeria. And so it's almost this idea of just being an open vessel, being a conduit, being able to be used for greater purposes. I'm like, God, if you're going to put me here, I know you put me here for a reason, so use me.
Now, he used you as an NFL athlete. He's using you post-career. One of the things that I love is that when you allowed God to use that money for that charity and to raise more money from a charity, he gave you arguably the best blessing of your life. You met your wife in Nigeria. And you talked about Calais Campbell kind of nudging you inside in the book. I loved it. Can you give me a quick, maybe expand on the whole idea of courtship, dating someone who's Nigerian? Because I'm Canadian, and as an American, well, are you Nigerian? I get you're Nigerian, right?
I would say Nigerian American. My parents were born and raised in Nigeria. They came here, but I was born in Dallas, Texas.
So growing up in church, I'm familiar with the term courtship, but I really don't know what courtship means. So what was that like to court your wife who's Nigerian?
Yeah, so that experience was different than anything that anyone I know has been a part of. When I talk about, there's things called a bride price. I know people read about a dowry, right? A bride price. I paid if you will, paid back her family for her with goats and cows and rice and all these kinds of things. But that experience was amazing. So my wife and I, we met actually about 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. Even though we met, we never really talked, we never communicated. She had moved from the village, the city she was living in, to the village to help take care of my grandmother. And mind you, I would go back every summer for these medical mission trips. I'd also go back for Christmas and New Year's. So I would see her every year, but we never spoke. I was scared and shy and all these things. Well, finally, I'm 22, 23 years old. I get drafted to the Arizona Cardinals. Calais Campbell, who's 6'8", 300 pounds, one of the nicest guys in the world, but he's a beast on the football field. He comes with me to Nigeria. And Calais is my best friend. He knows and knew everything about me, my likes, my dislikes, my wants, desires, all those things. And so we get to Nigeria, we land, we get off the plane. He sees my wife, her name is Ngazi, which actually means blessing in Igbo. He sees my wife and he says, bro, who is that? And I'm like, whoa, well,
And
back
you
up, back
thought
up,
he
man.
was trying to go for her
I
because
thought
he's
he was
dating
trying to
someone
go
back
for her.
home.
Yeah, I thought he was trying to go for her because, we on the flight, on that 14-hour flight, we had just talked about, there's a girl he was super interested in. Her name is Rocio. They're actually married now, but they had just started dating. So he told me about this beautiful girl that he loves. Then he lands in Nigeria and he says, hey, who is that girl? I said, hold on, man. Like, I thought what happened to, what you were talking about. And he said, no. He said, are you guys related? I said, no, we're not related, but where are you going with this? He says, dude, she's everything you've ever asked for and more. What are you waiting for? Mind you, I had a lot of fear and shame and doubt in the idea of being an American and going to marry someone from Nigeria. What are my friends going to think? Are they going to think that this is an arranged marriage or one of these things where it's a fraud or a scam? What's my family going to think? I had no idea what people were going to think, but the person who knew me best said go. He said go, and so I went. And we had a really cool opportunity to obviously court and date. I did something called it's called like the knocking on the doors, where you introduce yourself. It's not a physical knock, but you go and introduce yourself to her family and you share your intentions. So there's not America when you date, it's you start dating, hanging out, and you go meet the dad and the whole deal. Nigeria is very different. Before anyone ever recognizes your relationship, you have to go and introduce yourself and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and my desire is to marry your daughter. And that's what we did. So we did that, and we continued on that process, and I paid a bride price we mentioned earlier, which was, it was goats, and it was rice, and it was for the people, for the men in the village. They wanted some cigars and all these things. And so we negotiated that, and then we did a Nigerian wedding with 2,000 people at the wedding.
I love that. I'm an elementary school teacher. So one other thing that caught my attention is that you love, well, maybe not at first, but you love to learn it. And you went back at your MBA. And I was wondering, I know you're busy with the NFLPA right now, and you have a podcast, and you have this book coming out you're publicizing. This fall, do you have any plans to do any more online learning or anything like that?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot, Ryan. So I'm a free agent now. I'm considering if I should play another year or not. And I know God's going to open up a door with whatever I do. But people always talk about the pivot. And in my book, there's a chapter that talks about this, the art of the pivot.
Yep.
And I've been thinking, because I went back and got my MBA my first couple of years in the NFL. And I was thinking, man, what if I went back and got another degree or a different degree? And, what if I went to Harvard or to Stanford or one of those schools, right, where you pivot? And though there is a little bit of interest, I think my love for my family and my time outweighs that interest. I remember when I first started my MBA, I was single, and guys and I I just started my MBA when we started dating. And so, and she was in Nigeria, I was in America, I had a lot more time. But when we got married and we had kids, I remember going to class and saying, man, I'd rather be spending time with my 6-month-old son than to be driving 40 minutes and spending 8 hours in class, especially, and I was a newlywed. And so there is that thought of going back and continuing my education. But I think more so now I'm thinking of how do I use the gifts that God gave me to go and change the communities that he's put me in?
That ties to my last question perfectly. So between the art of the pivot, impacting the community that you are already in, I'm friends with some team chaplains. I've talked to a lot of team chaplains. Reading the book about how you want to have these relationships with teammates and different people, have you thought that maybe God could be leading you at some point when you hang up the spikes for real to maybe being a team chaplain? Because you'd have that family time still, but you'd also have that chance to be in locker rooms and having coffee with the guys and being that friend and mentor towards these now younger NFL players.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, I thought about this. I thought about my dad's a pastor. So he's a
Okay.
pastor. And I thought about people said, man, you'll be a pastor or a chaplain. I said, man, I want to be a pastor for my teammates. So while I'm playing, while I'm in my different arenas, I want to pastor and shepherd them and lead them to the Lord the way that I've been following the Lord. And I want to, it's a two-way street. I learn and they learn. And so for me, team chaplain, like I'd want to be the I want to be the team chaplain for the entire NFL, if that makes sense, right?
It
Rather than
does make
saying I want to be a
sense.
team chaplain for a team, what if I could still have that role and not be tied down to one team, if that makes any sense. That's my goal. And so I still want to be able to love on guys and minister to guys. I think I can still do that with doing the work we do in the community, with the book, with just the different areas that God has given me to move and operate. I still want to lead people to the Lord, but I think with this book, He's given me a bigger platform to do it.
Sam, thank you for your time. I loved reading the book. I enjoy the podcast you do with Steve and Sam. It's fantastic. Thank you for your time today. It was great chatting with you.